They're not there for a kumbaya moment. They killed my friend Charlie Kirk.
Oh, absolutely dumb politics, and for what it's worth, it's dumb law.
And what is the political left's response to this? It has been targeting these ICE agents and their families and their homes.
I was one of the people that helped draft the law that created ICE. I'm a little astounded that the United Kingdom doesn't have a similar law enforcement agency.
Now, they said defund immigration and customs enforcement. They said abolish borders. And now violent attacks are following. In Chicago, we saw a driver slam into an ICE vehicle. Portland's ICE centre is under fire nightly from protests. And across the country, the Homeland Security Department has deployed special operations after multiple violent attacks on their federal agents. They're calling it domestic violent extremism. Raheem Kassam from the National Pulse is still with me. What's going on? This is, this seems to be taking protest into a different level.
Yeah, and before we get going, I want to say, I subscribe to Harry Cole Saves the West on YouTube.
Well, we get very good.
Do so.
Very good. Raheem Kassam also has a YouTube channel. Look at this, an outbreak of unity.
I actually do consume the content a lot, and it's fantastic. And well done to you for hitting the ground running here. What is really interesting to me about what's going on with ICE at the moment is you have a federally funded agency which gets its powers from the United States Congress, which is now actually doing their job out in the streets, getting rid of illegal immigrants in the United States, which is part and parcel of their the whole framework of the way the immigration system works. Everybody knows that. Even when you come into the country illegally, you understand that there is a system by which if you get caught, you are leaving. And what is the political left's response to this? It has been targeting these ICE agents and their families and their homes. It has been trying to dox them and their children. It has been assaulting and harassing them in the streets. There is all this strange Baader-Meinhof style leftism now in America that's sprung up overnight. And what I want to know is this. How could that possibly be organic? How could that possibly be grassroots? Or who and where are the networks that are actually funding this? And where are the Republicans in targeting those people for prosecution?
Well, there's one man in the White House who seems to be declaring. That's Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller. Let's see what he had to say this afternoon.
When you have ICE officers who are carrying out the statutes and laws of the United States to arrest and remove illegal aliens, who are being subjected to violent attacks in the conduct of their duties. That's an example of illegitimate violence, illegitimate power in the form of domestic terrorism being used to impede the conduct of their official duties. The answer to that, in a civilized, modern, civilized society, is to use legitimate state power, grand juries, subpoenas, arrest warrants, search warrants, and every other federal power at the disposal of the commander-in-chief to identify and find everybody who is trying to use the real and actual threat of violence to impede the conduct of these federal responsibilities and ensure that they're placed behind bars. So it's the broader spectrum of political violence, but obviously ICE as an agency has been subjected to a 9-month effort to substitute left-wing violence for the votes of the American people. No federal officer in the conduct of their duties should have to worry about being physically attacked, being physically obstructed, being physically impeded, being doxxed, having a bounty put on them. And the fact that Democrat politicians are trying to normalize this really indicates how far we've gone as a society, that there is not universal condemnation of this organized campaign of violence against ICE officers.
Raheem Kassam, is there politics coming into this? Obviously, these are Democrat cities that the administration is threatening to send in the National Guard to. It's never far away from the divisions, as Stephen Miller says, they're almost trying to replace the election result on the streets. How much of this is being politicised, and how is the threat being jacked up a little bit to flush out the Democrats?
Well, look, remember, last time President Trump served a term, they tried to delegitimize his administration using lawfare, using the Russia hoax, all of that stuff. This time they're doing something completely different. This time they're taking to the streets, and they're taking to the streets in a remarkably swift and organized way to undo what the election results were, effectively, to try and delegitimize the government's credibility that only was elected last year, that only took power at the beginning of this year, that is only less than a year into this stuff. I mean, they're talking already about having had at at least 500,000 people deported out of this country in that period of time. That is a massive undertaking. It's massive for the government. It's massive for what people expected this government to do. They are reaching expectations, if not surpassing them at the moment. And that is, again, something that the British government should perhaps be looking to. I think, I hadn't seen that Stephen Miller clip.
Well, you were hitting the same. You were hitting your talking points there, weren't you?
But we talk about these same things day in and day out. That's why it sounds like we're telegraphing each other right now in real time. These problems on American streets are not going to go. You're not going to placate these people.
Yeah.
They're not there for a kumbaya moment. They killed my friend Charlie Kirk because of that. Right? For the same reasons, for the same rationale, for the same fact that they still can't believe they lost the last election. When Biden was in office, he said that the reason he couldn't close the borders is because the Congress hadn't passed enough cash into the hands of ICE. There hasn't been a single cent more. They're currently using the same budget that Biden had, and yet there are 0 illegal border crossings today. Think about what the left must be going through internally, and that starts to explain this insanity you're seeing in American streets.
Raheem Kassam, stay there. We're going to bring in Art Arthur from the Centre for... Oh, sorry, I've lost it now. From the Centre for Immigration Studies. Sorry, Art. Thank you for joining us on Harry Cole Saves the West. Raheem Kassam there making the point that the left of the United States is almost in free fall, still not able to put together a proper resistance on the Hill. And so the resistance to this administration is on the streets. Do you think that is fair?
Yeah, no, I think that that's exactly what's going on right now. We have a political party that opposes immigration enforcement by and large, that's not able to pass any legislation, and that honestly isn't able to give any good reasons why the largest border influx in American history over the past 4 years ever happened. But I think you have a large number of people who believe that America is so faulted, so flawed, so degraded. And that its immigration laws are, discriminatory against any and all who want to come to this country. And so they're voicing that in anger, in violence at facilities. We saw it, in Dallas, Texas. We saw it in the Alvarado detention facility in Texas. We've seen it in the streets of Los Angeles and Chicago. So, they're angry that the laws that the American people have passed are being enforced. They don't think those laws are fair. They think they're discriminatory. They think they go back to the darkest days of American history, not just Jim Crow, but, even before that. And that they shouldn't be enforced, and that anything that they do to oppose those laws, which are being carried out by what their leaders call fascists and Nazis, should be opposed, and using all means possible.
How organised do you think this is? We're looking at some footage there now of sort of your usual blue-haired rent-a-crowd, pride flags flying at every protest crowd, and then you've also got within that the Antifa sort of helmeted, combat fatigue wearing sort of organised militants. How organised is this? Who is organising it? And is the President and Stephen Miller right to say these are domestic terrorists?
So I think that when it comes to, who's organizing these groups, I could give you some ideas, but, I've sworn an oath to the law and I can't state anything dispositively. But right now, the Treasury Department, Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary, has vowed that he's going to figure out where the money is coming from for all of this. In the United States, you got to have a job if you're going to support yourself. And so if you're spending weeks and months in front of an ICE facility, somebody's got to be providing you with the helmet and all the gear and all the paraphernalia, and you got to be able to feed yourself. So the U.S. government is attempting to get to the bottom of this, but all of this took a disturbing turn this afternoon when the Department of Justice announced criminal charges against a member of the Latin Kings in Chicago who has placed bounties on the heads of our ICE officers, $10,000 for their lives, $2,000 for their abduction. That money's got to be coming from someplace, and the U.S. government's going to get to the bottom of that. Expect this to be the first of many indictments and complaints to follow.
I mean, that is a shocking development in terms of political violence, as we've discussed. Where do you fear this is going to go? Have the government got in front of this quick enough, or are we going to see these scenes escalate and play out unless something is done urgently, not least in Chicago, not least in Portland?
So when we talk about Portland, we talk about Chicago. Governor Kotek of Oregon, Mayor Johnson of Chicago, Governor Pritzker of Illinois, they own this now. Any violence that comes out of this, any blood that's shed either by passersby, by ICE officers, or as we saw in Dallas, by migrants themselves, is going to be on their hands, and they're going to pay a political price for that. The American people like law and order. We like to see our laws enforced, and in polling after polling, especially from Harvard-Harris, hardly right-wing outlet, about 3/4 of Americans believe that criminal aliens who are here illegally should be removed from the United States. This isn't a 60-40 issue. This is a 75-25 issue. And any bloodshed, any violence that comes out of this is going to be on the heads of the people who are promoting it, who are calling ICE officers Nazis, and who are impeding enforcement.
We've got the Democrat mayor of Chicago, Brandon Johnson, signing executive orders creating ICE-free zones. Not only does that presumably hamper the actual sort of job of deporting criminals, of deporting illegals, but also, as you say, completely out of touch with public opinion. Not only dangerous, but also dumb politics, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely dumb politics. And for what it's worth, it's dumb law. In the early 19th century, Justice John Marshall, the great Chief Justice, issued a decision in McCullough versus Maryland that said you can't place restrictions on the federal government when they're engaged in federal government activities. Brandon Johnson pretend that these people, that he can, do something much the same way that Gavin Newsom claimed that he could take the masks off ICE officers, but he can't. He just can't under our laws. But more importantly, ICE wouldn't have to be out there on the streets picking up criminals if Mayor Johnson, Governor Pritzker, Governor Newsom, Governor Kotek would simply allow them into their prisons to pick up criminals there. All ICE wants to do is arrest criminals. They're the ones who are standing in the way of it. I think that this is going to go to a Supreme Court decision, and I think that those local and state officials are going to get a rude wake-up call.
Arthur, thank you. Well, I've got you one final question. There's growing calls in the United Kingdom for creation. For opposition parties are calling for creation of their own ICE units. Do you think that would, is that something that America could sort of export globally? And is that sort of power that Donald Trump's deploying on the streets, something Americans should be proud of?
Yes, actually, I think it is. I was one of the people that helped draft the law that created ICE. It is a continuance of immigration enforcement in this country that goes back 100 years. I'm a little astounded that the United Kingdom doesn't have a similar law enforcement agency. I assume that you probably have plenty of people working for Inland Revenue that are collecting taxes. As important as it is to collect taxes, it's as important to enforce your immigration laws. Without immigration enforcement, you don't have sovereignty, you don't have borders, and you don't have a nation.
Arthur, thank you for joining us on Harry Kells Saves the West. Come back and see us soon. Thank you. Raheem, ICE, splits opinion, right? But Priti Patel, in a Conservative Party conference speech either today or I've just broken an embargo tomorrow, is calling for the formation of British ICE. It's always become a sort of totemic issue in Western countries that, finally someone's doing something. And as you just said earlier, the left are going so crazy because it's working, right? Yeah,
and just speaking of the Inland Revenue, I think if Democrat politicians want to declare ICE-free zones, then Republicans should declare IRS-free zones and see how they like that one. Look, it is imperative, whoever the next government is in the United Kingdom, that they are able to hit the ground running with this issue. We know the Labour Party currently isn't going to do it. They don't want to do it. It fundamentally works against them to do it, and it works against what their base wants and elected them for. But whether it's the Reform Party or the Tory party, I don't know. I've seen some of the scenes from the conference. It doesn't look like it's going to be the Tory party. They have to have a constitutionally based, we don't use that term a lot in British politics, but we have one, it's a living one, a constitutionally based method of getting rid of these people from the country. Again, to turn around to the ECHR and go, look, do your worst, we're running the country now. Remember we left it.
I think your mate Giorgia Meloni would say the same in Italy. I think the Austrians are certainly making noise about the ECHR. The French have been ignoring the ECHR for years, and it's only us, sort of silly Brits that seem to be taking this incredibly seriously. The UK does have the Home Office does have immigration enforcement. So, they got into trouble for driving vans around certain communities, suggesting that people grassed on their neighbours. That seems remarkably tame. What was that, 10, 15 years ago? And imagine the row, imagine the noise and row about that. Tenfold or 20-fold, 100-fold, when masked men are kicking down doors, ICE style. Do you think Britain is ready for ICE?
Yeah, well, you know what?
The public might be.
You know what? Not to raise the tone, but perhaps if we had listened to Enoch Powell in his 1968 speech.
I thought you were going to get plugged to your book in this controversial book. It has to be said. Yes, but I mean, I was amazed.
I'd be surprised if you read it.
Michael Fabricant, a former Tory MP, not a known right-wing headbanger,
right,
making that exact point. And actually, we didn't listen to enough warnings quick enough.